and I think we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome. If you joining us, say hello in chat. Let us know where you're from. I'm being joined by Dominic here from Notum. Really excited to chat about Strapi and everything they have done. One of the coolest things about Notum, they're like Strapi experts. So if you know they've done everything with Strapi that's possible, and I'm really happy to have them chat up to us about migrating Strapi v5, specifically plugins and some cool other things to chat about. But hello, everybody, and hello, Dominic. If you want to start just by giving us a quick introduction about yourself and how you got introduced to Strapi.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So as has been mentioned, my name is Dominic. I am the Strapi team tech lead over here at Notum. My introduction to Strapi was actually at Notum, or well, we can say that it was previously, but that was just some playing around with various CMSs. However, I've got into the deep soul of Strapi over here at Notum, doing many client projects. So it was a great ride, and I was very excited about the V5, many of great features. So we are also going to be talking about some of them today, maybe some of them which people may not know about just yet. So we'll see. I think you are muted, Paul. Still nothing.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Oh my goodness, my Mac computer is just like the blessing of my, craziness going on here. But I'm glad that I'm back. But I was gonna say, let us know where you all are joining us from, because I know we have everybody from everywhere. Where are you located, Dominic? Hello.
Oh, it was me. I was looking into the chat and there was another Dominic.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm just paranoid now. I hope everybody can still hear me. Yeah. Like I know we have a lot of Dominics, but
yeah, so we, Notum, and also me, we are based in Czechia right
okay,
now. So it's a nice breezy evening right now.
nice.
Let's see where other people are from.
Yeah, we have some folks for Toronto. Toronto. Yeah. Let's see. Yep. Well, nice. Chechnya, currently in Poland. Nice. Netherlands. Fantastic. Yeah. I'm in Texas, in Austin. Pretty fun. Very warm. That's why I like it. Canada. Nice. Slovakia and then Canada. Excellent. Ohio. Excellent. Yeah, we have a lot of cool, interesting places. Nice, awesome. So why don't we get started? And as we go through the presentation, we are going to do Q&A afterwards. So if you have like questions, you could drop them in the chat. But we'll make like definitely do a Q&A session closer to the end. So Dominic, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And once again, hello, everyone. There was a brief introduction. So once again, my name is Dominic from Notum, and I'm the Strapi team tech lead in Notum. So let's look at the agenda for today. We have a couple of things that we are going to be talking about. Firstly, we are going to do an introduction of what Notum actually is. Then we are going to be talking about the great additions to V5 and why we were overjoyed to hear these changes that are coming. Then we'll take a look at Notum's record locking plugin and also the migration and how it went. We are going to be talking about our Next.js starter template, which everyone can use to develop great Strapi Next.js application and how we migrated it. And then also some plans for the future, as we may not have been as active in the open source world as we would like to. So who is Notum? We are a Strapi-centric software agency from Czechia, and we are based in Brno, if anyone's interested. We are highly skilled in Strapi and React. We have a great team of developers behind us, And right now we are focusing on building highly performant, SEO optimized, and also accessible applications for everyone. We've shipped over 40 projects for clients from over 10 countries, whether it's a tournament organizing application with basically every tournament structure in the whole universe, or whether it's a quick website application which is presentational. And as mentioned, we also have our open source initiatives, so whether it's plugins, the template starter, and so on. Now, I would like to talk about why the V5 actually makes sense for us. And our greatest motivation was basically the market. So previously, we've used to have quite a lot of clients which wanted custom applications, which were based on Strapi. But nowadays, this has kind of shifted towards many companies wanting presentational websites and so on. And the issue with this is actually that the Strapi interface may not be visual enough to support the folks over at marketing. So like it's a really great piece of tool, but for the people who are creating the content, it may not be as intuitive if you have a custom front end, for example. And this basically goes into the disparity between what you see in Strapi may not look like what you see in your front end application. And this is why we were overjoyed to hear the changes which are in the new version. So the first one is versioning. This was a key thing for us. And we've also had our custom plugin for versioning on the marketplace and also on NPM and everywhere. But it was quite hard to maintain with all of the changes that have been going over the refactoring in the V4 and so on. So some of the minor versions used to introduce some breaking changes into the plugin, and it was quite hard to maintain for every version which was available. So we were absolutely glad to hear that the Strapi team is taking this off our shoulders. And we can focus on other initiatives. Then it was the draft and publish, which was already available in the V4. However, the issue was that when you had the published content and you wanted to make some changes, you couldn't really draft them anymore. And the introduction of like a free state draft and publish system in V5 is basically what all of our clients were asking for. So another great point. What I was most excited about was the simplified API structure, not only because it got rid of most of the .hell, which you had in the applications, but also it simplified the typing. So before it was not completely reliable in terms of how the types were generated, especially if you've had some custom endpoints and so on, or whether you use the populated E plugin. The types were kind of wonky, so you had to juggle them around and try to make them work. However, with the simplified API structure, it is all a breeze, basically works out of the box, so very happy about it. And then the last key feature that I want to mention, and this is what I was teasing before, is the static preview feature, which maybe Paul is going to give a little bit more information about.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Thanks for mentioning it. It's in the works, and we're really, really excited to release it soon. But we do have a link for you that I'm going to share where you could sign up to be notified when it is available to try static preview. So let me go ahead and share it in the chat and go from there. So awesome. Thank you for
Yeah,
mentioning that.
so this feature is basically going to allow you to preview what the content is going to look like in the front end by embedding a preview of your front end application directly into Strapi. And this is basically what every other client was asking about. So another great change, which I believe should be available sometime in the next quarter. And
Yeah.
then the last thing I wanted to mention was the focus of the Strapi team on easier migration. So this is something that a great deal of work power was used to because the migration from V3 to V4 was quite complicated and required a lot of technical knowledge. However, I'm happy to say that this is not the case anymore. So there was a lot of work done on the documentation side and also on like the automation of the migration side. So there is an available code mod which you can use, and also the upgrade tool, which will take you most of the way from V4 to V5. But there are some things that cannot be handled automatically, so there is still going to be some manual work involved. However, when that's needed, there is and I say this and I mean this, comprehensive documentation of all the breaking changes, which made it quite easy to actually do all of the migration that was needed. And that's true for whether you have an instance of Strapi, whether you have a plugin or other open source tool. So the documentation was able to resolve most of my issues directly. So also thankful for that. All right, let's take a look at the record locking plugin. So if you had a Strapi instance and you are working in marketing, for example, you are creating content, it would be really easy for you to work on the same item as someone else from your team, because we believe that content is like a collaborative effort. Um, and this is something that basically was not resolved previously in Strapi, because if two people were working on the same entity and both of them saved it at the same time, the other changes would be lost. This was something that was mentioned quite a lot in our experience. So we've created a plugin that resolved this issue by attending, sorry, not attending, but notifying users that someone is already editing this content. On the backend, this actually works by keeping a table of open entities by users, and we are using WebSockets to handle all of the communication. And also we have some planned things on the roadmap, which we weren't able to attend to as much as we would have hoped. However, in the future, we are hoping to add the takeover button and the limitation of content types on which you can actually see the notification, because right now you are getting notified for all of these.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say really quickly, that's kind of amazing what you're able to have a feature that you have in mind and create a plugin in Strapi that had not existed. And you're like, hey, we built it, we have this feature now. And I think that's one of the benefits of using Strapi is that you have this customizable plugin ecosystem for folks that maybe are not familiar as much with it yet, where you could create and add additional features through plugins. And I think that's such a powerful ability to have, because I know as a Strapi team, we have to prioritize the things that we work on. But you, as a developer, it gives you ability to create any other additional feature that you want to incorporate. So I think that's very awesome, and I think that's a very amazing plugin too, because we had so many people like, "What happens in Strapi when two people work on the same item?" Well,
Yeah.
here's a solution for you now.
Yeah, I believe that there may be like a hot stop solution with the versioning plugin or like the feature that is available in the V5, so you could actually regain the lost content, but this is actually going to prevent it. So really useful piece of kit in your toolbox, the Strapi toolbox. All right, let's take a look at how we actually migrated it. So it's important to note that this was the first thing which we've tried to migrate to V5. So at the beginning, it was a lot of digging around what actually changed in terms of the architecture of Strapi, how these things work, what's up with the entity service to document service, and so on. So we didn't want to waste any time, so we just said, okay, there is a code mod, let's use it. So into the terminal and use the code mods run tool. What was the result? Maybe not what I expected, because the code mod actually did not really help at all that much. So we've gotten some updated dependencies and also the deprecation of the helper plugin. However, most of the logic that rendered the plugin unusable was not changed. So this is going to be the design system changes and so on. I say I did not expect it. However, there is not like ton of Strapi logic directly that's involved. So it's most of the communication and the visual things in Strapi. So maybe it was to be expected. However, it didn't really yield the results that I wanted. And then we've came to the conclusion that we've been overlooking some technical depth in the past. So we just decided to move on and actually rewrite the entire plugin from scratch, which would also enable us to use the TypeScript, which is available now. So we just said, let's go for it. Sorry. So the second approach was to start anew and create a new plugin using the new plugin SDK, which is another tool which is specific to Strapi v5, and it basically enables you to create plugins outside of an actual Strapi instance. So you do not actually need to juggle around like rebuilding the plugin, then rebuilding the application and so on. You can have two folders. One is going to hold the Strapi instance. The second is going to hold the Strapi plugin. And you can basically use the plugin SDK to launch sort of a developer mode, which is going to keep rebuilding the plugin, and it's going to be injected into the Strapi instance as an dependency, which is also really cool. Basically makes it a whole lot easier to develop plugins now. And then we also wanted to use this to refactor the code and clean up the existing tech debt. So what we did, as I said previously, there wasn't a whole lot of Strapi changes involved in terms of migrating this plugin, and that's also why we are starting with this first. So we've rewritten it from JavaScript to TypeScript, which was really great because now all of the events and the things which you interact with in terms of custom logic can be typed. So this is also going to reduce the runtime issues which may have been previously. We've also taken this time to optimize the hooks, React hooks usage. So we have had quite a bit of use states and so on, and callback hail. So we've taken the time to clean this up and also extract the logic to separate files so that it's a whole lot more maintainable and also easier on the eyes for new people who may want to contribute if they were to do so. And then basically the Strapi specific things were that we had to replace the entity service specific logic, which relied on the IDs to document ID. So this was probably the biggest change that you may actually need to do in terms of your own applications. And then we've also updated the dependencies, whether it's the Strapi ones or the plugin specific ones, such as Socket.io and so on. And all in all, including testing, pull requests, this took us approximately 7 hours. But as I was saying, this was the first thing that we were trying to migrate. So your mileage may vary, but I believe that you will be able to do it within a couple hours. And it's definitely worth the hassle for the new features.
Yeah, one thing that I want to add, because we do have those two paths, like you mentioned, you could use code mods, which will, if you have like backend logic, it'll do a pretty good job migrating the backend logic, but some of the front end, like you mentioned, and design system stuff, that's something that you have to handle yourself. And I've tried that approach, and I also tried the second approach that you mentioned. Now that we recommend being the first approach, which is create a fresh new plugin and move code piece by piece. And I think that approach works a little bit better, especially if you're just new to plugin development, because you get to understand what code you're moving and what you're doing. It also gives you this ability to refactor. But more importantly, like, you're not working from a screen that's errored out. Like, if you run code mods, you're going to have so many error messages, and you have to fix every one of them before you even see anything. And that could be a little bit frustrating. And so depending on your experience, I think, and if you're just starting out with plugins, taking that second approach where you create a fresh new plugin and just move things piece by piece and keep your plugin in the working state, I think is the way to go. So it's like really good to kind of hear about your experience. Nice.
Yeah, that was also, I agree with what you said, especially since I wasn't the person to implement this plugin in the first place. So it actually gave me a lot more understanding of how the plugin was structured, what it did, and so on. If I were to just run a code mods and it would work, I may never have been able to find out how it actually works under the hood. So definitely agree on that. And it's also the approach that we've chosen for the second plugin, which is the location plugin, which has not been migrated yet, but it's in the works. So if you have a plugin that you think is worth upgrading, then I would definitely say that the second approach is the way to go based on our experience. All right, and so some of the changes which were related to Strapi. So the primary one was that the design system was refactored. So you do not actually have to import all of the components piece by piece, but you can actually import the whole component and use the subcomponents, which is sort of like a common way to create your design system components in the past year and the years forward, I believe. And then the other change was the removal of Strapi Helper plugin, which was really helpful. So I was set to see it go, but you actually have to implement some of the things yourself. So for example, in this plugin, we've had the prefix plugin translations, which basically took your translation keys and added the plugin prefix so that the internationalization could work in Strapi. So I've had to write it myself, but it was also available in the documentation that I've mentioned, so not really a huge deal for me. And this is basically for the record locking plugin. As I said, it was quite easy to migrate once I got my feet down. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the Next.js Strapi starter template, which we've developed at Notum. And it's basically another tool that you can use to get up and running really quickly with Strapi and also Next.js, which is probably our favorite front-end tool right now. So this template is basically optimized for performance. So this would be the lighthouse metrics, which everyone seems to rely on. Also the SEO attributes. So we've basically modified the components in the Strapi SEO plugin to mimic the metadata API in Next.js. And also for the development velocity. So it is absolutely easy and you are able to generate applications so quickly that you are going to be surprised how easy it is. And since the inception, we've used it to deliver over 5 projects, which are currently available for happy clients. So we are definitely not leaving it. It has been a great help for all of our endeavors. In terms of the developer experience, currently it's based on XJS 14. We didn't jump ship yet to 15. So keep an eye on that. And then we are using the Tailwind CSS and ShadCN library. Not quite library, but let's just call it that. So we have some components which are available in the template, but you can modify it however you see fit. Then we have the mentioned Strapi v5, and all of this is bundled in a monorepo so that we are able to share packages across all of the applications. And basically this enables us to keep one ESLint, one prettier, and one TypeScript config for both of the applications. So you do not need to adjust when you are changing applications, which is really great. We also have some developer comfort features such as CLI for generating commit messages so that you are using the standardized language across the commits. And you can feel free to check it out on the link. The presentation, I believe, is going to be shared later, or you can just check out the Notum-CZ on GitHub, and you are going to find it very easily. Now, let's talk about how we've actually migrated it. So this was quite a bit more involved. So let's just separate it into 2 sections. The first being the Strapi changes. When we started migrating it, the Strapi Populate plugin deep, which was absolutely, I believe, the most popular plugin for Strapi v4, was not available at the time. So we've had to look for other ways to simulate this. and basically the situation resolved itself because by the time we were done, the plugin was already available for V5. However, there is one thing I want to mention, and that is that with the improvements in typing and so on, I would suggest that you actually do write the populate objects, don't just use the populate plugin deep.
Yeah.
Uh,
I want to quickly add on that. I think like populate deep, the biggest issue that I think like it had is the fact that it made it very convenient for people to do populate logic. And the issue with that is that the way the plugin handles it, sometimes you will just getting all the data and you're not able to like just specify exactly the items you want. And so if you have a lot of data, like it may not be as performant of you just writing the queries yourself. And yes, there is that pain point. Like if you're learning something new and you're not quite sure how populate and filtering works in Strapi, like when you start doing it for the first time, it could seem a little bit overwhelming. But if you once you get a hang of it, because I've been writing all my custom query and populate logic, you actually like able to do it fairly quickly. So to your point, I would say if you used the plugin in the past, just remove it and just replace the logic with your own logic. And one of the coolest things you could do, I'll share a blog here. It's based on Strapi v4, but same logic applies in Strapi v5. So you could actually create middlewares that pre-populate the data that you want. So you don't have to write that, populate logic, like let's say in your Next.js application if you don't want to.
Yeah, that's true. I believe that also one reason why people would actually avoid doing this is that you've had to know the names of the relations, and
Mm.
this is also something that we solve with this template. Because as I said, we can share packages and we can also share types directly from Strapi. So now whenever you are writing your populate queries, you can just, they are typed automatically. So you do not actually need to know the name of the attributes. And if some of them were to change, you are actually going to get a build issue. So you know that the populate query is not working. So that's another great feature. Yeah, then for the migration, we've also had to rewrite some of the custom controllers and extensions. So for example, we've had a piece of code that is going to send you an email whenever you register into the applications. And since Strapi doesn't directly let you create your own custom templates, we've had this written in our extensions. So we've had to use the document service instead of the entity service. However, not a big change. Then a controversial topic is the life cycles. So we've used to use quite a bit of life cycles in V4, and it was a thing that we've wanted to move away from. And also in V5, with the draft and publish, this is a little bit more complicated. So we've actually decided to ditch the life cycles that were in the template. And it was mainly the life cycle that checked that your slug is unique only across the locale and not in the whole application. And once we've removed that, I've actually noticed that this is something, this is now the default behavior of Strapi v5. So now unique is unique only within the given locale, not unique with the whole database. So that was, we spent some time investigating how to actually do this. However, once we decided to ditch it, we came to the conclusion that it works out of the box. So that was
Nice.
also great. Yeah, then we've replaced the unavailable plugins and refactored the configuration for existing ones. So this would be like the provider options for media library and so on. Not many changes. However, we've had some thinking to do about which plugins we actually do not need. And with that, we've actually came to the conclusion that we can just remove them altogether instead of waiting for people to migrate them to V5. And actually, you may be surprised by how many plugins you don't need in the project, for example, as the populate deep one. Then we've also had to update the authentication endpoint logic since the validation logic changed, for example. So now in the endpoints that handle password reset. You do not actually need to send some of the attributes which were required previously, and this would result in validation issues. So again, some investigation and refactoring, but nothing that major. Then we've had to validate that all of the configs are valid. So this is something that also requires some of the changes, since V5 now uses Vite by default. Another great addition, if I may say so, faster hot module reloading and so on. So always great to get some performance for free. And similarly, we started with a clean V5 project rather than trying to use the upgrade tool. Again, that was purely because we have quite a bit of custom logic. If you are only relying on the content API and you do not have custom integrations, custom tools, and so on, I believe that the upgrade tool would be a great way to go. And then for the front end, it was quite a bit involved, especially because we have so many of the things like prepared. But I don't believe that this is going to be a main talking point right now. So the primary changes were in the included typings, for example, because the auto-generated types differ. This is also caused by the change from entity service to document service and so on. And we've simplified the structure as per the changes in the API. However, beside that, we didn't need any additional changes. This was a little bit more time consuming, so we've used approximately 16 hours to actually test, check the pull review, pull request review, and so on. However, I believe that for such a large project, it's not too bad. Then we can take a look at some of the main code changes. So as I mentioned, replacing the entity service, which is going out of service, and using the document service. That was one of the changes. Then finally, we are getting Vite and the import aliases, one of really great features which we use at Notum all the time in all of the projects. So glad to hear that. Then finally, full TypeScript typings for all of the application, the life cycles, the events, and so on. Absolutely overjoyed to hear that this is finally happening. And then some of the provider changes, as I mentioned. So this would be just changes in how the objects actually look, but nothing major. And I believe that this was duplicated. And then for some of the future plans, we still have the plan to migrate the Strapi location input plugin. If some of the people that have joined are interested in that, we didn't forget about it, we didn't abandon it, and it's being worked on as we speak. However, the rollout is planned for Q1 25. Now, in terms of migrating of this plugin, that is also quite a bit more involved, especially since we are tapping into a lot more Strapi logic than, for example, with the record blocking plugin. So maybe there will be a separate blog post about how we actually migrated that, but on that later. Then we also want to follow up on the roadmaps of our plugin. So as we've mentioned, there are some features that have been in the pipeline for a long time now. However, we've been quite busy with all of the client work. So unfortunately, we couldn't get around to doing that. And then we also have some plans on further improving the starter template. And that would be especially optimizing for the Lighthouse metrics. Right now, we have a sort of a page builder which you can use, but there are ways we can optimize it, for example, with dynamic imports and also with streaming of components so that we can get the metrics down as much as possible. We also have some open issues in terms of the development comfort and so on, and the documentation, so that's also going to be worked on. Updating to Next.js 15 is another thing we are looking to do, and implementing the static preview feature. That is going to be probably the biggest improvement that we can actually do, especially for the people who are going to be dealing with the Strapi interface. And one thing I would like to mention is that all of these are open source projects. So maybe if you found them useful, we would be happy to welcome new contributors. You can, for example, start it on GitHub, or you can also contribute by creating pull requests or basically opening issues so that we can know if you have some of the use cases that we maybe haven't considered. And that is basically everything from me right now. We can do Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Or I'm not sure if you can also join by voice, maybe.
I think we'll just to keep it simple, we'll keep it in chat.
Yeah.
Because I haven't experimented with that yet, so I don't want to like accidentally break something. But yeah, no, I would say thank you for the presentation. Like really, really awesome. Really excited to check out the Strapi starter. I think one of the biggest things for me with Strapi is the way I got involved with it. I switched careers into like learning to code like later in my life. And as a junior developer, I was mostly focused on the front end, but I wanted to build more full stack applications. And this is like when Strapi V3 was around. And I got my like second job working as a React developer. And I was working at a company that had a bunch of financial products, and a lot of their developers were Python developers, and they couldn't take away any of their senior developers to kind of work on a POC or a project to kind of try out. And so I kind of came up with the idea. I'm like, let me build a POC, like proof of concept. Let me just use my junior developer React skills and, spin up Strapi V3 at the time. And I was able to jumpstart the project to a point where me as a junior developer, they didn't have to take away any of their senior developers at the moment. Like I was able to jumpstart a project that the CEO of the company is like, oh, this could actually have some potential. So they ended up hiring more developers, and it turned into a thing. And I think like the biggest benefit for me is you're not starting from zero. You're saving so much development time. And I think to your point of creating like a starter, like with Next.js and Strapi, allows you to jumpstart a lot of client projects. And I know you were mentioning earlier that in the past you had many clients who wanted to have like more app type of projects, but now they're more like websites that want to be performant and SEO friendly. And so just creating this starter must have saved you a lot of time, like jump starting projects.
Yeah, definitely. We will also had experience with some of the proof of concepts where we could just employ a junior developer who was able to create a website all by their own. So I was surprised to see that, and I worked on the template, so it was really great. And to your point, I also agree with that. The primary thing I think that's best about it is that it's quite agnostic. So you are free to do all of the applications, all of the websites, and so on. You are not being forced in one direction, which is probably the thing that I like most about Strapi, because all of the other content management systems always lean into some sort of paradigm of certain applications and so on. But Strapi is, well, I think it has always been and always will be pretty much agnostic in the use case that you actually have. So you are free to build whatever, which is also one of the reasons why we are building the plugins, because we want to empower people to do whatever they want with Strapi.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I have a follow-up question, but I want to get to Bogey 19 first. Before to put some context, Bogey's a long-time member of the community, built a lot of his own cool plugins, but he's starting strong with this question. What is the worst issue you run into with Strapi?
Would it be worse to debug, worse to resolve, or can you maybe specify that, because the answer may vary based on what you actually want to hear.
Yeah, I was going to quickly say though, like in terms of like when building things, I know I work at Strapi and I've used Strapi before working here, so I'm like really in love with it. But there is no perfect solution, and it's basically identifying the requirements that you have and the type of projects you work on, and identifying what's the right stack. For me, like in 80% cases, like Strapi is like I reach for Strapi first a lot of times. But so what is the worst issue to run in with Strapi? Yeah, I'm just repeating the same question. Yeah, give us a little more context, Bogey, to resolve, to troubleshoot. Let's start with like, what is the hardest things to troubleshoot? like from your standpoint, like when you're working with Strapi that maybe think could be better?
I think that one of the things which may not be as specific is maybe some of the transparency. So, for example, if you have life cycles which you may not know about, well, if you are an experienced Strapi developer, you will know that you can just command P and look for life cycles, or for example, in the bootstrap function. But if you are coming new to Strapi and you are joining an existing project, you may be surprised about why some of the things are happening, which you just cannot know that they are happening. So that may be one of the things. And also, as I mentioned in the presentation, in the V5, the life cycles have been quite a bit more confusing. If you want to, for example, in the V4, you could just send the state of the before update into after update. And now with the draft and publish, which actually creates two entities, if you publish the new state directly, you are getting none of the previous state back. So this was also quite a bit involved to debug. But other than that, some of the quirks of Strapi, I don't think I have a specific one in mind, but sometimes it just happens. And you are just dumbfounded sitting there. How could this happen? But non specific comes to mind.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think like it depends what you're building, what you're working on. For me, your point to life cycle methods, because we did make the big changes. Now you would use the middlewares instead. Like if someone is not aware of that, it could be very frustrating. So we are actually in the process of trying to like create more content around the context of how to migrate away from life cycles to use like the new way of doing things. But yeah, let's see. And don't be shy in the comments. Ask questions. We'd love to hear. There's never silly questions, and if you don't have a questions, let us know if you're working on any Strapi applications. We'd love to hear from you. I was gonna ask Dominic, like from like your experience working at Notum, uh, what is the most complex like Strapi application you built? Just to kind of give people what's possible.
Yeah, so that would probably be the one that I've mentioned in beginning. We've created an application which is basically a tournament organizing application. So it has a front end, but there is quite a bit of logic on the back end. So you can actually create tournaments. You can create tournament leagues of tournaments. You have rankings for the seasons. You have basically any of the game types that you can imagine. So you can structure the tournament however you want. You can have however many phases, which could basically be like you can use the groups in the first phase. You can use the Swiss in the second phase. You can basically tie the tournament however you want. And this was probably the biggest application that we've used Strapi to build. It's not quite available yet. It's in the works still, but I would say that this is probably the biggest application that we've used. And there is so much code on the backend that you wouldn't believe how much there can be.
Yeah, it's amazing to me like the wide like kind of use cases. Like you could use Strapi without any customizations to power like a basic small business website, almost not touching the back end at all. Just start Strapi out of the box, create your front end, make the API calls to Strapi, and you're good to go. And then you can make these complex applications similar to what you've done. And I think to me is the power where Strapi allows you to grow with your projects as needed, which is really really cool. Another use case I saw some folks working on a project where Strapi is not the main kind of like thing, it's just part of their bigger picture. And I thought that was kind of cool that you could use it in whatever capacity like it fits your needs. We have a great question from Tomasa. He says, what is the best way to structure website pages and their hierarchy in Strapi? If you would like to share your experience.
Um, Okay, this is a very specific question towards a task that Tomáš is currently dealing with. Um, so yeah, the best way would be to actually use middlewares when the content is changing so that you can dynamically update the full path to the page. I believe there is going to be some of the logic that is left up to the reader, but that would be the way I would do it if I were you.
It's like, hey, help me, please. Answer my question. I'm working on this. Nice. Uh, and then David from Local Lazy. If you haven't checked out Local Lazy, check them out. It's the easiest way to translate your content, to be honest with you. But we're currently working on migrating their plugin. And thank you for the migration tips. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
feel free to reach out if you have any issues. I've been dealing with some of them myself, so we can definitely work together. I know that some people from Local AZ also joined our release party for V5, so
nice.
it's cool to see familiar faces.
Yeah, and then I just gonna quickly mention, like, definitely like reach out to everybody in the community, like Notum or Local AZ, who's like building plugins for Strapi. And we also have Monday through Friday, 12:30 p.m. CST time, open office hours on Discord. So anybody could come in, ask questions. Derek and I hang out there with like Bogey and other community members. So there's another great place where you could ask your questions live. Um, yeah. No, this was great. This was awesome. Yeah, and we have a few more minutes. I definitely don't want to, like, I know Dominic. It's closer to evening now, or getting there, so I don't want to keep you too late. But so if you have some questions, definitely ask them.
Yeah, Tomáš was writing a question, so
Yeah,
maybe we'll just let him finish.
yeah. Of course, no problem. Have Let me ask you a question. Like, so you build this started with Next.js. I know there's like so many frameworks out there. In your mind, like, why did Next.js make the cut? Uh, you know, and why not use something else?
I think that the reason why it made the cut was that it made it so easy for people to actually deploy the
Mm,
application. So you can
yep.
just create a POC and have it up and running like literally within 5 minutes on Vercel. Um, if your application is a bit larger, then there are some considerations that you are going to need to take. But I believe that just the simplicity. And they are also powering the way through with new React features, such as the server-side rendering and so on. They were basically, I wouldn't say the pioneers of the new React features, but they probably have the largest following, and it's just so
Yep.
easy to deploy the applications that it's I think that if you are in the React ecosystem, you would actually have to work very hard to find something that's easier to start and deploy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And again, they led the way with all the new React features. So if you wanted to have access to, React server components and, server actions, like that was the only way to go. In the past. No, that's pretty cool. I'm like, I really enjoy Next.js, and usually that's what I start with when building things. So Tomas was asking, is there any way to translate rich text properly? Which I'm kind
um,
of,
I'm not sure if I know how this question was meant. So, are you thinking about automatic translations, for example, using the localizer?
yeah. And I'm also wondering if you mean like if it's Markdown or like the block, like, because we have two different rich text fields. One is Markdown and one is like our block editor. So maybe that was referencing the question to you. Oh, automatic translations. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would also depend on the follow-up question about if it's the Markdown or if it's something else. For example, in most of the projects, we are using like third-party Wysiwyg editors. So that would be like CK editor is probably our most used editor. Oh, blocks. Well, it's actually quite a simple JSON, so you could just have like a middleware that is going to be doing this for you. But in the middleware, you would actually have to know what's the structure of of the blocks that you are using. So for example, if it's just like the basic default format and you do not have any extra blocks, then you could just write like a parser for the JSON, which would give you back the content, which you can then use. For example, you can translate it via OpenAPI or localazy or whatever service uh, you would want to use to translate it, and then you can just pass it to the request.
Yep.
No worries.
Yeah, and if anybody has any follow-up questions, please ask. We'll do like one or two more. Do you have any tips on migrating an external database to Strapi v5?
Yes, I have experience with that, and I would basically, if it's a simple database, so for example, if you can store it in the JSON format, you can just use the database migration tool, which is available in Strapi. If it's a more complicated database, for example, if you have a dump of MySQL or something, then depending on what you actually need to migrate, so that would be maybe it could be one-to-one, or you would actually want to map some of the content to like different collections and so on, then I would believe that it would be the best if you wrote a custom script and just use the content API to fill in the content. That's what worked for me the best in the use case that I had, and that was using the database dump and mapping it to actually a different set of collections and data architecture in the Strapi. So this would greatly depend on like what's the use case for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I always find like uh, database migration always one of the most challenging parts.
Yeah, especially because you have to deal with the relations in Connect yourself, and it's a little bit more complicated than if you were just using like a document service to do something.
Yeah. And I think someone was asking about the redirect plugin. Um, I think there's a redirects plugin that has is in the process of being migrated, unless it already has been upgraded. Here, I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it hasn't been taken over by a community of plugin developers. But I would say that if you are only delaying the migration because of redirects, then this plugin is basically really simple. All it is a collection of redirects. Then it's a custom field so that you can import a CSV, and then it's one endpoint so that you can get all of the redirects. So if that's only thing keeping you, you can also for example, take a look at GitHub and just mimic what you need in V5. I don't think it should be a big issue.
Yeah, I believe that plugin should have been migrated. I'll double check. Webis, who's part of the community, he's the one that created it. I think last time I talked to him, he was working and he might have like uh, has the V5 version. I just not sure. Maybe it hasn't been published to the marketplace. Let me look at the. Yeah, I would. I hold on a second.
Yeah,
I know
also,
he was working on it, and the SEO plugin from Strapi should be migrated as well.
yes, that has been migrated, and I can confirm.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the presentation, for example, we are modifying the SEO plugin component so that it looks like the Next.js metadata API. So you can also extend it however you need and then resolve it on the front end. For example, if you are using like the head library to use create SEO tags, you can just create the logic however you need it. The SEO plugin has been migrated already.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'll follow up on the redirect. I know it's in the works. Um, maybe just hasn't been published to the store yet. But hold on a second. Let me see. Wait. And Norman here, I'll throw my email in the chat. You could just send me an email, and that way I could follow up with you. Because I know that should be coming out soon. Because I know the creator, who now happens to be working for Strapi Webist. Yeah, no. So I think it was a lot of fun. Unless someone has the last question, I think I learned so much, and I think it's kind of cool. And I really just love to see what everybody's doing with Strapi, and to me to kind of see all the cool things people are creating, just so exciting. And Notum, like, and everybody on your team, Dominic, has been involved in Strapi for like so long that I think if anybody's looking or has any questions, definitely reach out to Notum. They have a lot of knowledge in building Strapi applications and migrating projects and building plugins. And so it's really, really awesome to have you as partners. And then Bogey's calling me out. Bogey, share the link to it. To be fair, V5 version that needs some more work. But Bogey created a plugin, Protected Populate, a really amazing plugin. And he's in the process of finishing. Well, I think it's done, but he feels like there's more work. But he shared the link to it, Protected Populate. Definitely go check it out. Amazing plugin, and Bogey does amazing stuff. Also, he's one of the top members in our community. And a lot of times when I don't have the answer to the question, Bogey knows it. I'm like, ah, damn it, Bogey, why are you so smart? But anyway, yeah, so definitely check it out. But with that being said, I just, again, huge thank you for Dominic being here. Thank you so much. And everything you do at Notum. Thank you for everybody in the chat and the community stopping by. And if you missed this stream, we are going to have it available on our YouTube channel. And definitely feel free to reach out to Notum with any questions that you have. And if you have nothing to do Monday through Friday, 12:30 p.m. CST time, or have Strapi questions, stop by Strapi's Discord for open office hours. But with that being said, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.